Video is called The Fear of Being Average. This looked very interesting to me because I feel like there's a lot of people in the creative space that have imposter syndrome right now. And if you guys don't know what imposter syndrome is, it's basically just you don't ever feel like your shit is good enough. And I think that's going to touch on that a lot.
Good.
In this video.
Our entire lives, we've been taught that we needed to be exceptional.
Very
That
loud.
average was something we needed to escape. That if we didn't do something remarkable with our lives, we failed. But no one ever stopped to define what average actually meant. A stable job, a partner, a house, 2 kids. Because if that's average, why were we ever taught to fear it? The truth is, none of those things were ever the problem. Everything you've been told about being average has been a lie. Average was never about the life you live. It was always about something much deeper than that.
A first creation.
Be open to experience. Be willing to try new things. Don't be afraid to wander. Don't be afraid to eat a bad meal. You know, if you don't risk the bad meal, you'll never get the magical one.
Anthony
Facts.
Bourdain knew what an average life really was and why we're so afraid of it. Before becoming a famous author and TV show personality, Bourdain spent 2 decades working in professional kitchens. He graduated in 1978 from the Culinary Institute of America, and in his early career, Bourdain worked as a line cook and sous chef at restaurants across New York. And all the while, he carried a different dream.
Wait, I remember this show kind of like vaguely. Wasn't it like a Food Network show? I remember seeing this guy before when I was a kid, like very, very little. When I lived with my grandparents, I remember seeing some of this on TV, I think. I think he would travel the world and like try different meals, like insane meals.
To be a writer, he wrote his first book,
Or am I thinking
Bone
something
and Throat,
different?
which received lackluster reviews, and his second book, Gone Bamboo, also shared the same fate. Both books sold poorly, and his writing career became stagnant. You see, Bourdain was 42. He was beginning to accept that the dream he once had wasn't for him, so he turned his focus back to cooking. He worked his way up to executive chef at Brasserie Les Halles, a respected French restaurant in Manhattan. From an outside perspective, Bourdain made it. He had a great job, stability, and all the money he needed to live a comfortable life. A life many people would be grateful for. So why not just stop there? Why not lean into the life he fought so hard to build? And that's exactly what most people do. As time passes, they get set in their ways. They convince themselves that the life they built is enough. They find a job that pays the bills. It's not perfect, but it's fine. A partner they love deeply, someone to come home to. They move into a place that feels just big enough, buy furniture they'll keep for years, and fall into routines that make life easier. Nothing is wrong. And that's the
I feel like before he explains whatever he's going to explain in this video, I feel like my personal take on the whole average or, you know, people kind of capping themselves out is not that like, I feel like there's 2 different types of people. There's people that are fine with having average lives, and there's people that like kind of just like, I feel like and I don't know because writing books and like writing in general is so much different than like making content, because I make videos and shit because I find it fun and I enjoy doing it. And whether or not I blow up or not, or I make it really super popular and I start making like a ton of money from it, I feel like it's always something that I'm going to enjoy doing. So I'm always going to do it until there's a point of time. If there's ever a point in time, which I really hope there's not, because I really do, like I said, I really do enjoy doing this. But like, obviously, if there's ever a time where I do it and it's like 100% not enjoyable for me, there's not one aspect of it that like I don't like, or there's one aspect of it that I never like, that's probably the day that I would like stop doing something. I don't like the type of people that stop doing something that they're really good at or something that they enjoy doing just because they're not seeing any benefits from it. And I don't know a ton about Anthony Bourdain, but the guy that they were talking about, he wrote 2 books and they both performed kind of bad. And then he went back to being a cook, which it doesn't sound like that's something that he really enjoys doing, but he's good at it. And there is that line. There's people that are really good at something, but they don't enjoy doing it. And then there's people that are kind of bad at doing something that they really enjoy doing. I don't feel like he had the true passion for it, because even if it performed poorly, I would still be inclined to want to write books if that's something that I actually enjoyed doing. And I think a lot of people relate to that. I feel like a lot of people, I think with the way that social media blew up over the past 10 years, I feel like the whole being average thing is bigger than it ever has been, because you're constantly spoon-fed bullshit every day on your phone, that people are living like these extravagant lives and have all this money and, you know, have a perfect life, and they didn't have to work a 9 to 5, and they don't work in fucking fast food industries, and they don't work in retail. They just were grinding and posting content and making a ton of money. It's all bullshit. And I know that sounds like such a boomer thing to say, but like I've always been a strong believer in the aspect of like, the more money you have, the more bullshit you have to put up with. And if you don't agree with that, you probably have never, well, I haven't either, but if you don't believe that the more money, more problems you have is true, then that's probably, again, I'm kind of an oxymoron saying this because I haven't never been a millionaire, obviously, but the saying is true. You don't have $1 million in your bank account and can still live like you have 10,000 in your bank account, you know, or 5,000, right? You don't live the same lifestyle. If you have $1 million in your fucking bank account, there's obviously something that, for example, you probably own a business that you have to put time and effort into. You don't just have $1 million from posting 4 TikToks and then blowing up, and then you have $1 million in your fucking bank account. So I think the myth of being average is a bad thing is coming from the aspect of all of these social media like people or celebrities that have tons and tons of money. I think people are pairing the lifestyle that celebrities live comparable to someone like me, like a lifestyle that I live. It's not in the same park, because they don't just like star in a movie and they can go live life for 5 years with living the same lifestyle I live, where I could go to like a grocery store and grocery shop. Like, that's just a stupid example, but like a celebrity would not be able to go to a Walmart or Meijer or a grocery store and buy groceries for themselves without having like security guards with them and stuff. You know, it's not the same. Chapter 1.
This is where most people misunderstand what an average life actually is. Because you can wake up every morning, go to work, come home, build a family, live quietly, and still live a deeply fulfilled life.
I've fallen victim to the
Millions
coloring.
of people dream of exactly that, but it feels like this generation is convinced that stability isn't enough. Social media brainwashed us into believing that we should chase unrealistic perceptions of money and materialism, and that if we didn't have this checklist of things done before a certain age.
Because the thing is like nobody, I'm honestly really blessed that I've adapted this mindset and understand this to a level, because there's so many people out there that genuinely don't get what I'm about to say. Having the thing that you want does not satisfy you. Sure, on paper, you could say, Brennan, would you take $1 million right now and be super happy, and it's something that you've always wanted, right? Yes. No one in their fucking right mind is going to be like, no, I don't want $1 million. But that's not, like, there's always more. As long as I am physically breathing, and I am not dead, there is always going to be a next step. Always going to be something more that I want. It's never, you can have, so your dream right now could be a car. Say you want a Tesla or a Honda Civic or something like that, you know? Like for me, like I still want a motorcycle. I really want a motorcycle. I will do everything in my power, work as hard as I need to do to get a motorcycle, but I know in my heart, my chest, my brain, right? Even when I get a motorcycle or when I get a car that I really want, that's not the end all be all, because I'm still going to be alive. I'm going to be looking for the next, whether that be taking a trip to another country or learning a new trait or learning a new skill or something. There's always going to be more. And I think so many people are blindsided by the fact that they see all these social media content creators and celebrities and stuff. They're like, oh man, they had this mansion. That'd be so nice. I want a mansion. I want to own a mansion one day. You own that mansion one day. You're going to want something more. It's human nature. You're always going to want something else. It's never, okay, I got my dream car. I'm set for the rest of the years that I'm living on this earth, right? And I think that's where the average word comes from, is because you don't have those dreams or that dream item or dream goal or something like that. I think people don't realize that, like, subconsciously, once you achieve that goal, you're going to make another one because you're like, okay, I did that. I don't know. I don't know how to end that
age, you're
observation.
falling behind. But an extraordinary life isn't defined by starting a $100 million business or becoming an athlete or a celebrity, because average was never about structure. It was never about a 9-to-5 or a house or a routine. It was always about your mentality. A stable life isn't the problem. The problem is never challenging yourself within it, because somewhere along the way, comfort quietly replaces courage. You stop trying new things. Stop doing things you're bad at. You only ever choose the options you know will work out. And over time, you begin to resent the very life you once prayed for.
Yep.
And slowly, days start to feel the same. They turn into weeks, and weeks into years. And one day you wake up and realize something terrifying. You never took a single real risk. Never once stepped outside the routine. Never once asked more of yourself. That's what being average actually is. Anthony
And I think adding to that too is that was what I was saying at the beginning is like I know people they're in it's so weird because what I'm about to say I feel like I can challenge by saying that they only say that because it's what works and that's what he was just explaining, but I have met a couple people in my life that I could probably say genuinely are completely fine with getting a job that they work for 20 years and then getting a good retirement for it, and that's how they want to make that's how they want to do their life. Me personally, and I feel like a lot of people will be able to silently agree with this, is that I feel like you take the safest option, which would be locking in a good paying job for however many years before you can retire and make a lot of money. I feel like that's the easy way to do that. But like I literally had this conversation with an old guy that I used to work with at a school system. God bless him, dude. I told him, I said, I don't understand how people, and it was just me, how I think, I guess. I don't know how people could be fine with working and doing the same process of a job for more than 10 years. And there's people that'll be like, yeah, I'll do this for 30, 40 years, right? I could never do that because like you only, and I know every human ever has heard this phrase a million times, but you only get one shot, right? Why would you want to limit yourself to only perfecting / not even perfecting, just working a 9-to-5 job that's the same process every day for 20, 30, 40 years, right? Like, if you're going to be working for 40, 50 years anyways, at least to me, I want to experience, like, a bunch of different shit, right? Like, I don't want to be like, okay, yeah, I cleaned toilets for 40 years. I sat at a desk for 40 years and input data for 40 years, right? Like, I want to be able to say, oh, yeah, I dabbled in that. Oh, yeah, I did that. I did that for a few years. Oh, yeah, I did that for like 10, 15 years. Like, it's like building your repertoire, you know? Like, you build experience in multiple categories. And I feel like that gives you better of a life experience because you're not limited to one thing. Like, a perfect example, like, my dad was always super, a big advocate for showing me how to, like, do handy stuff, like how to use a screwdriver, how to mount something to a wall, how to find studs in a wall and stuff like that. And it has helped me so much in my adult years to the point where like I talk to people that are my age about like I had a conversation with a coworker a while back about mounting a TV, and they're like, what do you mean mounting a TV? I was like, mounting it to the wall. And they're like, you can do that? How do you even do that? That sounds scary. And like for me, it's second nature because I've done it so many times. And I was like, you just have to find the studs and then like attach it to the studs. And they're like, what the fuck? How do you do that? And it's just like, having that interaction helped me see that like having a good life experience is not in like how much money you make. It's about how much life you like intake. You know what I mean? Like experience.
Bourdain knew this. He knew that coasting through life doesn't end in failure. It ends in something far more dangerous. A life where you're satisfied, but not fulfilled.
Right.
And Bourdain knew that if he stayed there long enough, he wouldn't just lose the dream. He'd lose the courage to ever try again. The only way forward was to take the risk. But before he could do that, he had to confront the one thing that stops people from ever doing so. Your ego. Ego follows you everywhere. It shapes your decisions, quietly disguising itself as excuses like, I'm being realistic. And humans are inherently egotistical. We want things to go our way. We want to avoid looking foolish or unprepared, and that's why most people never try anything new. They don't pick up the hobby, never speak up at work, or talk to the stranger across the street, because a rejection or failure feels humiliating. It's easier to protect the image you have of yourself than to risk watching it break. I didn't have time. Something came up, or maybe later. Those excuses feel safer than saying, I tried and I wasn't good enough. So most people choose the first. They protect their identity in the present, even when it costs them their future. And the tragedy is that ego doesn't stop you from failing. It stops you from ever finding out who you could have been. And this is where Bourdain did something most people never do. You see, he had already failed twice. He had every reason to stop trying. He could have came up with a million excuses, but he realized he had grown to become the very type of person he once resented.
Right.
So he picked up the pen again. He wrote an essay called Don't Eat Before Reading This. Although it was only ever meant to be for the line cooks that he worked with, he did attempt to publish his work. His mom was the one who helped him submit it to the New Yorker, one of the biggest magazine companies at the time, a place you don't submit to unless you're certain you belong. Bourdain wasn't certain, but certainty was the one thing he had already decided to reject. So, he sent it, and after just a few days, he got a call.
I wouldn't even necessarily say that ego, and this is all just my outlook on life. I don't feel like ego is like the number one cause of people not wanting to try shit. I feel like it is, if put it broadly, I guess, is judgment from others. But I feel like we've reached a point in society now comparable. I'm comparing this. Obviously, I've only been here 25 years. Comparable to like what it was 10 years ago, because I always talk about this sometimes when it gets brought up about what I like doing. I had family members in the past like ridicule me and talk shit about like me making videos and stuff. And I feel like that in itself isn't really what's stopping people anymore, because dude, in the last 10 years, the events of like how you can get rich now, and I say rich is in the aspect of like having a lot of money. I feel like getting a lot of money now is so much easier than it was like 10, 15 years ago, even 20 years ago. But it's tenfold, because it's like, what is the term I'm trying to say? It's a dual-edged sword, because while you can make money so much easier today, there's also so many new things that like charge you money, you know, like obviously like inflation, rent's higher, houses are higher. So it's kind of like a trade-off, because like back in the day, you would just like go to school, or that's what they say, go to school or like learn a trade and make a lot of money, like HVAC or be an electrician or a plumber or getting into construction, stuff like that. That's how you would make your money back in the day. But there's so many new ways to make money that like I don't feel like, at the end of the day, I don't feel like ego is like the best description, in my opinion, of why people like give up on stuff. I think it's the fact that, I would say, oversaturated. I feel like there's a lot of people that have the same desire to do stuff, and whether you want to use streaming as an example or being a writer, there's always, and I feel like that's something that people should remember, is that there's always a million people trying to do the same thing as you, but there's only one version of you doing that thing, if that makes sense. Like I'm not calling myself a Picasso when I say this, but I'm just using that as an example. I'll throw myself under the bus. Fuck it. Queso is one of the top streamers, right? I could never stream or even replicate the same thing as Queso does on a stream, because he's Queso. And the same thing vice versa. Queso could never replicate what I put on a stream or make in a video, because I'm me and he's Queso. There's always going to be millions of people doing what you want to do, unless it's like really niche, and your niche thing is like only crocheting fucking vegetables, like vegetable-shaped crochet stuffed animals or something. That's pretty niche. I don't think there's probably millions of people doing that, but basically what I'm trying to say is there's always somebody that's doing or wanting to do the same thing as you, but they'll never be able to do what you do because they're not you. And I know that sounds super stupid and cliche, but it's true. And I don't think, like I said, I don't think ego is the thing that like makes people not want to do it. It's the fact that they're going up against such a broad and large scale of competition that it makes people lose hope in like not want to do it. That's why I've always been a big advocate. If you enjoy doing something, please, for the love of God, do not get roped up in the views. Like when I post a YouTube video, like literally this is a perfect example. Last night, for the first time in 2 weeks, I haven't even opened the YouTube Analytics app. I opened it last night just for the fuck of it. I think I accidentally opened it on accident, and I saw that my cartel video that I uploaded a week ago had 209 views. I thought the video was going to flop, so when I uploaded it, I was like, you know what? Whatever. I uploaded it. It's video for the week. When I opened it and saw that I had 200 views, I was like, oh shit. I thought it was going to get like 14 views, bro. I thought it was going to do horrible. But that just enabled me. I was like, okay, like, don't get lost in the sauce with the numbers. Even if it's a high view count, be like, oh, good job. Give yourself a pat on the back. But don't let that be your new standard. Don't be like, okay, so if my next video gets less views than that, I should just give up altogether, you know? Just keep doing what you enjoy doing and use the audience that you gain from it as like a little, I don't know, a little push. Keep doing it. But that's not why.
In classic storytelling, there's a moment in every protagonist's journey where they must overcome something called the ego death.
The ego death.
Often temporary loss of one's sense of self or personal identity. This is usually in the form of some sort of humiliation, sacrifice, or failure. Regardless, they must overcome this ego death to reach resolution. And we are the protagonists of our own lives. To reach fulfillment, we have to go through this. You have to lose your ego, the version of yourself that needs certainty, that needs to look competent. That's the price of a meaningful life, a small death of your identity. Bourdain didn't know if the call would change his life. He only knew that staying safe would quietly erase it. And as soon as Bourdain did this, well, the rest is history. Expanding on his article, he went on to write Kitchen Confidential, an unflinching look at the food service industry that became a #1 New York Times bestseller. The book's success propelled him onto television, becoming the host of No Reservations and Parts Unknown, on which he traveled the world sampling different foods and engaging with different cultures.
Yeah, I'm not tripping.
Everything he became traced back to one
seeing
decision: choosing uncertainty over safety. And Bourdain spread his philosophy to millions, hoping to inspire at least one person to do the same, to embrace the unknown, to try and fail, to be wrong. Bourdain never stopped living like this. He was always chasing new experiences, new cultures, finding new ways to escape comfort. One of his quotes that always stuck with me was, "Go somewhere you've never been." It doesn't always have to be about travel, but maybe something as simple as taking a new route to work one day, or trying a new coffee shop. Anything that brings you out of your comfort zone, because ego is what creates the comfort zone, and the comfort zone is where dreams go to die. So instead of risking discomfort now, ego offers you a trade. Stay comfortable today, and we'll deal with the consequences later. And those consequences don't show up immediately.
Right.
They show up years later. It arrives as a sentence you hear one day and can't unhear. If only I tried. It's regret. Because what if Bourdain had never sent that article? What if he had given up after his first 2 books flopped? He would end up with the same fate millions of people settle for. An average life. One filled with regret. And the only way to live a life without regret is to escape the comfort zone. But here's where most people mess up. They think escaping the comfort zone means blowing up their life. It's not. It doesn't mean quitting your job to start a business or leaving everything behind and moving across the world. That's not what Bourdain did either. When he sent that essay to The New Yorker, he kept his job. Even when they offered him a contract to write his book, his risk was small. Picked up writing again. Even when he was comfortable being a chef, submitting an essay to a place he wasn't sure he belonged. Those aren't dramatic leaps. They're what I call small ego deaths. And this is how you truly create an extraordinary life. Bourdain once said, "I am eager to believe that I am completely wrong about everything." And that one sentence perfectly explains his entire life. Because if you're wrong, you're willing to embarrass yourself. You're willing to try. You're willing to embrace discomfort. So try something new. Pick pick up a new skill, talk to a stranger, try a new restaurant, share your work before it's perfect, go somewhere unfamiliar without a plan. And this is how you need to live every day, in the present, because this moment is all we have. As humans, we tend to focus so much on the future. In a way, it's a paradox, because we fear an average life so much, but only in hindsight, because we fear discomfort in the present more. So it was never about a 9 to 5 or a routine or even comfort. Those were not the enemies. It was always about letting those things control you.
Fire. W video. Yeah, no, I think the only thing that I would have to add to that is I think that's what a lot of people get confused, is that when you get like an opportunity to go in on something that you really enjoy doing, and for him was writing, he didn't like stop working his normal job that was like making him money to go in for it just because people offered him money or a contract, whatever, to do that. I think a lot of people make that mistake, and that's another awesome thing that social media and just media in general has destroyed, is they paint this narrative that just because, so say I got a small time, and this is a perfect example of this because I've thought about this so many times before. Say somebody sent me a invite to a group of content creators or something that boosted me to not like huge fame, but enough to where I was making money off of, if I was making the same amount of money as I was working my job that I have now, but doing it in content creating and streaming, I don't feel like I don't think that I would also quit my normal job, because that's where so many people get it twisted, is you don't quit. This is just my personal belief too. You don't quit your 9 to 5 job or whatever makes you money that like helps pay your rent until you're making that, doing what you like doing, at least minimum times 2. Because what's gonna happen, this is my explanation of how to kill your dream overnight. The minute that you rely on your your hobby or whatever you enjoy to do, at the moment that you rely on that to pay your rent, to live under the roof that you live in, is the moment that you kill it, because then it doesn't, you're not doing it for fun anymore. You're not doing it out of enjoyment. You're doing it out of necessity, because you have to pay those bills. W video though.